conversations with everyday people across the lifespan. I am Kathy Couch, your host of Rewired 360, your EMDR University, and we are here today with a lovely guest. We have Dr. Kathy Couch, your host of Rewired, Carl Rothschild, and we are here discussing red light therapy. And so we have a lovely conversation for you, and I will turn it over to Dr. Rothschild so he can introduce himself.
I really appreciate that. I love getting the opportunity to share with people about the wonders of this technology that has it's the word I use is miraculous. And I know it's not a very scientific name, maybe not a very sophisticated name or word, but watch what I'm going to tell you and I think you will be amazed. But anyhow, it all started in 1972. I was a junior at Stony Brook University, which is a very good school out in New York. And I was a science fiend. I mean, I loved biology, but science in general. And I had won some awards and whatever. But I didn't know and see how that was going to translate into a career. I actually got into microbiology, which between me and you is boring as heck. But at least I found that out and didn't decide not to make a career out of having a relationship with viruses and bacteria. And I realized I wanted to work with people. And someone introduced me to something that actually in this world is considered about two notches below voodoo, and that was chiropractic. Back in 1972, it was not really well thought of. But I contacted chiropractors all over the country, and every one of them, to the person, said that they loved what they were doing. And that's what I wanted. I was a bit of a hippie, my version, which meant that money was not going to be my main focus. My focus was going to be trying to help as many people as I could and having fun doing it. And I'm glad in 1978, well, before that, I had come out from New York to California, went to school in California, and started in 1978 as a chiropractor. And I got to tell you, I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved the kind of stuff, and chiropractic was wide open at the time. So I could do anything. I could do education. I could do research. I could do, of course, being a chiropractor. And because I am a little bit of a nut, I wound up with 12 different practices, not all at the same
Oh
time,
my goodness.
but I juggled a bunch of them. And I'm not necessarily telling you that was a good idea, but I did it. And, so I really had a great experience. And then about 20 years into my career, I get handed, I knew a medical doctor that was just learning and getting involved with red light therapy. And he was the first one actually to get FDA clearance for this device back 28 years ago, give or take. And he hands me what looks like a flashlight and says, "Let's go save the world." And I thought he was crazy, just as crazy as people thought I was when I first decided to become a chiropractor. But anyhow, um, I promised him that I would and use it in my practice because one thing we know, back then we knew it and we know it now, is that this technology at worst does nothing. There's never been a side effect, a clinical side effect in the 50 years that they've studied this stuff. So what's the worst that'll happen is nothing, which is amazing. Amazing. If I'm when you listen to me and you'll hear some of the miracles that we've seen and witnessed, and knowing that what's the worst that'll happen, try it out, is nothing. It's you have nothing to lose to try it. And I'm going to tell you now that the worse off you are, the more severe your condition is, typically the more dramatic the change is. So if someone were to use our equipment and they were great, they were in perfect shape, I don't know if they'd see a difference. Honestly, I don't know. Probably would. But somebody that's a mess, whether it's Parkinson's or dementia or Alzheimer's, we're seeing results with those things. Whether it's multiple sclerosis or any autoimmune disease, kidney issues, I can go on and on. I'm just, every day I get surprised by different people telling me that they had certain ailments that no one could help them with, or they were taking very severe drugs that had amazing side effects. You know, drugs are spectacular if they didn't have any side effects, and that's unfortunate that every drug has a side effect. So imagine doing something that has no side effects, and the upside is quite spectacular. So, for example, we had a guy, and I'm going to tell you that a lot of these things are just, well, I don't know if it'll help. Let's try it. So this guy calls up one of our practitioners and he says that he's having a heart attack once a week on average. And this had started it started 15 years ago with congestive heart failure. And then about 13 years ago, give or take, he started having regular heart attacks. It started out once a month, then twice a month. By the time we meet him 12, 13 years down the road, it's weekly. And the only reason he doesn't completely die each time is that they had implanted a defibrillator into his chest 13 years ago. And every time he dies, it would zap him back to life. But you can see, I mean, it was once a month, and now it's as often as once a week that he was falling apart. He was deteriorating to such a degree that I don't think he had much longer to live, to be honest. His energy was gone. His mood, of course, he was terribly depressed. And the practitioner calls me up and says, look, I don't even think I should treat him. I don't want him having a heart attack in my office. I said, you know what? Let's just treat him for 5 minutes only. Now, a dose is normally really only 12 minutes, but we're only going to treat him for 5 minutes. Stay in the room the whole time. That patient went home that night, and that was 2 years ago. And he's had more treatment, but he's never had a heart attack since. And everything has come back to life.
Oh
His
my
heart,
gosh.
everything, his blood pressure, his pulse, his energy. So I'm going to be sending you these videos, and I welcome your audience to watch the testimonial videos. And this is an Excel spreadsheet I'm sending you with links. And one page is with patients, another page is with practitioners, and another page is miscellaneous videos. And that's why in a little while I could just tell you that if you want to see a lot of great videos, you would go to our YouTube channel. And on that channel, they have over 160 videos, and you don't have to watch them all, but they're great. They're really, especially you watch the more recent ones. You just go to YouTube and put in the phrase at Trifecta Light Official, as it says behind me, and just check out all these videos. So anyhow, moving right along, um, we had that with that assistance with that particular individual, but with the heart attacks, but Lyme disease, I mean, it just doesn't matter. We've seen great results, pretty much. So at any rate, there I am using lasers 28 years ago when we were first working with devices that we were covering parts of the body. And then about 15 years ago, we learned that as a wavelength of light, and it's only red light only, no other colors, no anything,
Mhm.
just red, can actually assist in fat loss. And I said, wow, that's amazing. Because if you don't know this, and I think everyone would know this, and particularly in the United States, weight loss is huge. Excuse me one second. So there we are. I'm thinking this is amazing. I'm going to incorporate that one particular wavelength in our equipment and start helping our practitioners with weight loss. And it works. If you use this, and we're not going to be foolish to say, hey, use these lights, but you can drink anything you want and eat anything you want. No, you got to be smart. Now, we're not putting anybody on a starvation diet because that doesn't work. It'll work for a time, but we're looking for a lifetime changes, not for this 1, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then you put all the weight back on. We want you to keep it off, not only as we help you get it off. And so it's if you combine a smart diet with a little bit of smart exercise and red light therapy, the results are great. I mean, really, really great. And
Now,
there's
are these only certain places that you can have these machines that are will be able to do the therapy? Where can people find uh, ways to get access to therapy?
so if somebody would go to our website, which is right behind me here, it's trifectalight.com, and then they go to the contact page. On the left side of the contact page is an opportunity for you to find a location closest to you. And the reason why it's called trifecta is the triple effect of face, fat, and healing. So if the face is going to look much better, fine lines and wrinkles are going to be at least fade at minimum, if not gone. Under the chin and jowl region, fat and all that should also be much better. So that's the fat part. So it's skin, the face is going to look great. The fat part, I'm going to tell you in a moment how that works. And then the healing, which I'll also talk to you about. Well, how does that work? The fat loss, in the beginning, they thought that exposure to this red light would melt the fat or liquefy the fat. And it turns out that that's not true. It took them a while to figure that out. But what we've subsequently learned is that it actually makes the fat cell wall very temporarily more porous. And it allows some of the contents of the fat cell to leak out into the surrounding tissue. But within a few hours, the cell is completely back to normal. So we're not damaging anything. We're not freezing it. We're not boiling it. We're lasering it. We're not using ultrasonic cavitation or radio frequency. All of those are about destroying fat cells. And that's not my belief. I don't believe that we were put together with a bunch of body parts that we can just get rid of. But that's chiropractic. So, being a natural healer, I'm not going to be doing any damage. We're not putting anything in the body that doesn't belong there, and we're not yanking anything out that does belong there. So what they learned is that by changing the fat cell wall temporarily, it allows some of the contents to leak out, and then with using whole body vibration after the lights, using whole body vibration, lymphatic massage at the same time will help to move that through the lymphatic system, that fat that's been released, eventually to the liver for use or elimination. And it works. I mean, it really works nicely. And, the limiting factor is the fact that we're relying on the person's body to help us. It's not like we're cutting pieces off. That doesn't matter whether the person goes home and pigs out every night. So we need their assistance to not pig out every night. And also, alcohol's really tough on the body when it comes to fat loss. If you can look it up and see that if you're trying to lose weight and you're also drinking alcohol, it's going to be a very strong uphill battle typically.
Okay.
But you can look that up. You can go to ChatGPT or whatever you prefer and putting up the problems with alcohol and fat loss. I'm not going to get too involved with that, but that's how simple it is. Red light has been shown to make the fat cell walls temporarily porous. That's it. That's how simple it is. So we started manufacturing. We were manufacturing pads because we wanted to cover more of the body than just the lasers. And we were having very nice success. And then COVID hit. And with COVID, our practitioners would contact us and say, look, we don't want to close down. Do you have a suggestion on how we can do this therapy without having any physical contact between the patient and the provider? And we came up with the bed. Now, you can see behind me the latest version of the bed. Now, we started with several versions earlier with the bed, and we just created the bed, remember, just as a substitute for what we were already developing with no expectations of anything different than what we had already been manufacturing, other than it looks different and, and it covers more of the body. Well, that's the difference. What we've since learned is that by bathing the whole body at the same time, front and back, left and right, top to bottom, inside and out, covering as many cells as possible, that's when these miracles are happening. That's when the guy with the heart attack, we never saw that before. I didn't see these things. I didn't see a guy like Steve, who had Lyme disease, contracted when he was 12. And then we don't see him until he's in his 50s. He doesn't get into one of our beds until he's in his 50s. And
Mm-hmm.
that Lyme disease ravaged his body and ruined his life.
Mm-hmm.
And, it ruined his childhood, his social life, his education. And of course, he couldn't have a career because there were days when he couldn't get out of bed. And then just after one visit, now I'm not going to tell you anything else about it. I want you to watch the video. His name is Steve. And when you watch it, you'll see. Remember, I told you in 1972, my goal was to help as many people as possible. I'm one of those kind of people. And not everybody's like this. And that's not good or bad or whatever, but not everyone's like this. I get a thrill out of helping people, especially in the health world.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're hearing more than ever, which is a thrill to me, is I want to thank you for giving me my life back. So the first one that said that to us regarding the bed was Joey. And Joey had a crazy sounding autoimmune disease called Charcot-Marie tooth disease. And it meant 15 years of pain. It meant, and I mean all the time, always in pain. And he could barely walk. In fact, he didn't walk because it was too difficult. And after 6 visits, they then interview him. I didn't do this interview. Most of them are done by me. And that he's one of the first ones to say, and I want to thank you for giving me my life back, because within those 6 visits, but certainly by the end of those 6 visits, and again, that's 3 times a week, so that was 2 weeks, he went from not being able to walk and always in pain to no more pain. And this is not something that is just very temporary, and I'll explain that in a minute. But um, he went from no pain and walking and treadmill and bicycling, and his life is back. And that's what this is about. It's not about, I'm not going to be able to take an 85-year-old and make them like a 20-year-old. What we're going to do is take that 85-year-old who has severe Parkinson's and dementia and all other ailments, and just give them a much higher quality of life. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about. And I'm going to talk to you about how and why this works. But I just want to reiterate, for you, I want everyone that's listening to try it out 6 times. Now, I'm not in practice. I'm not inviting you to my office, and I have no financial involvement here. I just want to help as many of you as I possibly can. And here's how you do it. Go to the website, look on the left side of the Contact Us page, and we will isolate, find the closest location to you. And it just takes 6 visits to see if this works. It might take more visits for treatment, but just try it for 6 times. That's 3 times a week for 2 weeks. Each dose is 12 minutes. And when you get in the bed, you keep your eyes closed and your mouth open. People ask me, well, what about wearing goggles? And I said, no. If you wear goggles, then you can't get this incredible energy into your eyes. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about people telling us about results that are unbelievable with macular degeneration, macular edema, uveitis. Um, I'm sure you've heard of cataracts. We had a guy that I interviewed who's relatively famous in the athletic world, and he's older now, and he had some pretty significant cataracts. And his doctor said, next time we'll set you up for surgery. Well, in the interim, he was using the red light therapy at one of our offices in Beverly Hills out here in California. And when he went back to that doctor, the guy said, something's weird here. You have no cataract, no indication that your lens of your eyes are having any issues. And so these are the kind of things that surprise us. I mean, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but the first time I hear about all these different diseases and how these people respond, it's shocking to us. So, getting back to the eyes, if you were to wear the goggles, you wouldn't be able to get that beautiful energy into your eyes. So we had a guy that had Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, LHON. There's a whole community out there of people that have that. And it guarantees them going to be blind before they're 30. They're going to be blind. And he didn't know that he had an issue until he was in college, and started realizing when he was in the, when you're a little bit of distance away from where the professor's writing on the board or whatever, that's when he started noticing he was having problems. And eventually he was going to be blind, but by the time we meet him, he's lost a part of his eyesight. So he'd have to, even glasses would not be sufficient. So he'd have to wear glasses and then use a magnifying glass to be able to read certain things. And so and he had headaches, including migraines, and he had other symptoms, including insomnia. And so there were other ailments besides him losing his eyesight. And within 2 weeks, everything was much better. Within a month, it halted the progression completely of this disease. And this disease is like multiple sclerosis of the retina. And it stopped it. And that's exactly what happens with people with multiple sclerosis. It halts the progression. So the damage that's already been done, most likely we're not going to see a reversal of that. But imagine you can get somebody to get rid of a lot of the symptoms, but most importantly, halt the progression. So when that multiple sclerosis patient goes to the neurologist says, something's up here. You must have changed your medication because you progressively have been worsening. And now, after this whole year, there's no change. The MRI is identical to what you had a year ago. And the guy said, yep, it's red light therapy.
So how many beds do you have available for people?
Oh, there are hundreds throughout the country.
Hundreds. Okay.
But there are areas, in order for us to blanket the nation, we'd probably need thousands. It's a big country. And so there are some areas that we don't have coverage yet. And then I'm going to welcome anybody out there to get one of these. It costs about $50. This is a business. Now, we do have a lot of people buying it for their home, but these are people that have money, but also recognize that the reason why people don't get it, how expensive it is, it's very expensive to be sick. If you've never been sick,
Yeah.
never been to the hospital, never gone through the drugs that are needed and the doctors that are needed and the labs that are needed and the hospital stays, you have no idea how expensive it is to be sick. So if you'd like to prolong your well-being as long as possible, incorporating this red light bed, it, it will definitely give you a longer, it's not about living longer. So it's the difference between lifespan and health span. We're more interested in health span. So keeping you healthy longer, that's what this is about. We're not going to stop people from dying. That's not going to happen. But what I always taught my patients is that you want to do it more gracefully. You want I liken it to a candle that burns really bright from top all the way down to the bottom and then sputters out and dies. That's the ideal way to go, to be honest with you. But that's not how most people go. The last 10 or 15 years of people's lives ain't so great. They're dependent on others to feed them, to wash them, and even to wipe them. And I don't want that. And if that is going to happen to me, I want to prolong that for as long as I possibly can. So I'm 73 years old and I'm careful. And the reason why some people are not careful is because they're not scared enough. They don't know what they're doing today and what effect it's going to have later on. So I get patients come to my office and they'll go, well, I could drink a 6-pack every night. It doesn't have any effect on me. Well, I'm going to tell them, look, talk to me again when you're 65 and you're so arthritic and you've screwed up your kidneys and particularly your liver, and then we'll talk. And you're definitely going to wind up with diabetes and the numerous other issues. So the reason why people don't take care of themselves typically is they're not scared enough. So get scared. And the way to get scared is go volunteer at an old age home and see what you might not want for your future. See what it would be like at a certain age. I used to teach a class, will you be dancing when you're 75? It was a great class, but people didn't get it. When you're younger, you don't really understand what you're doing. And it's the same investment that you would put into money so that you'd have something when you're older. It's a similar investment in your health so that you have something worthwhile to live for as you get older. And so I think volunteering, so that's what I did, not for the reason that I was trying to, but when I was in college, my girlfriend and I, back then, we volunteered in an old age home. And it was alarming what these people, their lives were a mess. So the last 10 years of their lives is sitting in a wheelchair, watching the world go around and not participating in any of it. And that's not what I want for my life. So, and that's not what I want for anybody's life.
Have you done the therapy for yourself?
Of course.
And tell me your personal experience.
It's hard to say because I don't have any particular ailment. So I'm using it because of what I don't want, not because of what I'm having. So I don't know, I'd have to have a twin of mine that would have not used red light therapy, and then we would compare what our lives were about. Like I said, I'm 73. I work out uh, almost every day. Today's been a challenge because I started very early taking the kids to school. And then this meeting, normally I do podcasts later on in the day. So I haven't worked out yet. I don't know if I'll be able to squeeze it in, but I try to work out every day, especially cardiovascular. And I'm smart eating. And then, of course, I use the bed probably twice a week on average, maybe a little bit more. Um, and I, but it's not like I'm going in there feeling terrible and then I'll feel great. Many people have that, but I've not let myself slide down to the point where I'm not ailing. Now, if my back's a little sore or anything like that, that definitely gets resolved. But again, I'm doing more of a preventative program, which I always try to do with my patients. And it's crazy out there, but most people are motivated by pain, so they don't do anything for themselves until they're having ailments. I have witnessed what I don't want, and so I do preventative stuff. So it's a great question. I wish I had a thing where I said, look at, I was handicapped and now I'm not. I mean, I'm glad I don't have that, but I don't have that. But I'm living vicariously through the lives of all these other people and what they've gone through. I already talked about, like neuropathy. We have people that can't even sleep with the blanket on their feet because the weight of the blanket is impossible. And within 2 weeks of using the 3 times a week of the bed for 2 weeks, 6 visits, typically that stops. And neuropathy will take longer. Anything to do with the nerves takes longer. Every other part of your body heals to a degree faster. But nerves and brain, that healing is very slow, if at all. So again, I believe strongly on preventative work. Most of you are going to wait until you're half dead before you go see a doctor. But when you do, I'm telling you, you got to try these whole full body beds. So then I'm going to go over two things with you now. One of them is, well, how does this darn thing work? And number two, what should you look for? Because when we came out with the bed and it had such an impact on the body, there was all of a sudden China perked up there and said, okay, you know what, we're going to rip that one off. And so there's all kinds of junk out there. Some of the stuff that comes from China is quite inferior, but what can we do? So I have to convince people that, because they'll use this junky red light bed or red light equipment and it doesn't work nearly as well. And now they're going to figure, well, red light doesn't work. And the truth of the matter is it has to do with the quality of the equipment. And the most important thing you want to look for are medical grade lights that you wouldn't know. I mean, they can tell you they're medical grade or not, but here's the thing. Really strong, no heat. Heat is the enemy. So if your device that you're using or something that you bought off of Amazon gets hot, you know right off this is inferior lights. Heat is self-defeating. Here's what heat does. If you've ever imagined, when I go into the room and I take a heat pack off a patient's back, the back is bright red. So what heat does is it dilates blood vessels and brings more blood to the surface. And that would block the penetration of the light. So what we've always been looking for are very strong lights that don't get hot. And those are medical grade, high-end lights. That's number one. The next thing is what we've learned is that full body coverage is ideal. I don't have an objection to a mask or a helmet or pads that go over parts of your body. That's fine. But when you want the miracles, when you want the kind of diseases that people and conditions that people are having that will give this kind of response, you need a full body experience, head to toe, covering as many cells of the body as possible. And in just a moment, I'm going to go over how and why this works. But you want full body coverage. The next thing is you want the lights to come as close to your body as possible. So when the lights are off the body, which is most of the beds out there, have these high arcing domes, and so the lights are very far away off the body, then you know you're losing power exponentially as you come away from the body. The next thing is the ability to customize the treatment based on the condition as well as the size of the individual. As I had mentioned before, heat is a problem, right? So if you have somebody that's 80 pounds, you want them to have a unique dose that's different than someone who's 400 pounds. Now, the 400 pounder has a lot of flesh. They can absorb a lot more energy without it getting hot. And the 80 pounder has next to no flesh. We have to tone down the power and some other things to make sure that they get the right customized treatment specifically for their condition and their body. The next thing is the ability to pulse the wave. Now, we learned that over the last few years is that if you have the capability of pulsing that wave, you create a resonating frequency. And some of you have are understanding about healing frequencies. You can look it up. healing frequencies, the different tissues of your body resonate with different frequencies. And they will make a difference if we create that resonating frequency in the bed with pulsing the lights and then doing it that way. We're seeing much better results that way. And then last thing is that there are devices out there that you can just plug into your outlet, any outlet, and they're very weak and they're underpowered. So you want to find a, whatever bed either you get for yourself or wherever you go, they should have a 220 volt outlet that gives that bed that much more power. Now, I'm telling you, the trifecta light is the best bed out there. And I don't know what to do about all these crap beds that are and equipment that's out there. But try the trifecta light. It's, I think with all the things that I told you what to look for, the bottom line is you want the most effective equipment possible. So that when you do those 6 visits that I'm recommending all of you try, just 6 visits, 3 times a week, 2 weeks, when you're done after those 2 weeks, if you don't see a difference, it would be very surprising. Again, you might need more visits, but you should see a difference. So that guy with Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, nothing could help him until it did. But it took a couple of visits, or maybe even 3 or 4 visits, for him to start seeing a difference. But certainly by 6 visits, all of you should see some kind of difference. You get in the bed, eyes closed, mouth open. So some of you might say, well, is it dangerous to the eyes? No, I told you, 50 years of studying this technology, there's never been a recorded side effect. However, keeping your eyes open is challenging because it's a very bright light. So would you take a flashlight and shine it in your eye and keep your eye open for a length of time? I don't recommend that because it's annoying, but it's not dangerous. So just keep your eyes closed. The lights can easily get through your eyelid. And if I hadn't mentioned it before, it can get through the skull and get to the brain. And so you being a social worker, I want you to understand that anybody that would use the bed emotionally most likely will feel much better. So I had this one patient, very depressed. I mean, she hadn't experienced joy in many years in her life. And she started using red light therapy, the full body bed that we have. And within a relatively short period of time, she writes me an email, and it goes like this. If this is how normal people feel every day, I can't believe I've been missing out all this time, because she has found joy. Now, she still has issues in her life, as we all do, but people who can't deal with the issues well, they get depressed. It's not typically the fact that their issues are more severe than this person's issues. And I can't explain it, but how you're raised is part of it. How somebody can handle issues when somebody has the same exact issues and they can't. But what the lights do is it gives you a better perspective. So you don't get so overwhelmed by what's going on in your life. You know, we're one of the most drugged countries on the planet. And alcohol and drugs are prevalent, you know, they're all over the place. Why is that? Because people can't handle what's going on in their lives. So what I'm suggesting is incorporating red light therapy for emotional issues as well. So we talked about the website and the YouTube channel. And then also, I don't make a dime off of this, but if you want to get the most current information about red light therapy, I wrote a book that's on Amazon, which is called Illuminated Healing. And I'm going to send you the show notes, including these testimonial videos and whatnot. I'm also going to send you what's called a digital brochure, which is very helpful for people. It has all the information. It has the links for YouTube. It has the links for all the things that you might want to research about red light therapy. So now let's talk about how does this darn thing work for healing. Now we talked about fat loss, but what about for healing? And for years, of course, in science, it's not uncommon that it takes a while for them. They'll see something, they'll understand how kind of it works, but they don't know why it works. And so they didn't know exactly why until they realized what we've done is we've taken elements of sunlight, 4 elements of sunlight, magnify them many, many times. No UV light, nothing that could be injurious. We've multiplied and magnified these four wavelengths that are completely healthy, incredible red lights that burn red and near infrared that are invisible to the naked eye. We've integrated these four wavelengths into the bed, magnify it many times, and drive it deep into the person's body, covering as many cells of the body at the same time as we can. So you've heard over the years of people told, well, why don't you go sit out in the sun and it might help you. I mean, even centuries ago, they suggested that. You know, it makes sense. We're on this planet with a sun, that the sun is something that would be helpful for us. In fact, without the sun, we're all dead. Dead. First of all, there's no trees, there's no grass, nothing that's going to grow. So we're gone. But also just for ourselves, if you're, living in a cave, you won't have as great an experience as if you can get out of the cave sometimes, meaning, that you're on your computer all the time. Get out there and get some sunlight. It doesn't have to be hours, just even 15 minutes a day. Try to get as much sunlight as you can, just when you can. But also incorporate this red light therapy bed, which takes it to a whole nother level. We're not talking about, with Arnett that had the heart attacks, I'm not going to tell him to go sit out in the sun. It would be nice, but it's not going to change things. But after just one visit, he no longer had heart attacks. So that's how strong this thing is. So how does it work? These four elements of sunlight, red and near infrared. Now, the word infrared is an interesting word. There is no such thing as infrared just by itself. It's either far infrared, which is just heat. So you've heard of infrared saunas. Well, those are using an element of infrared that's far infrared. And those far infrared saunas are fine. I mean, they just generate heat. So does a jacuzzi, so does a hot tub, so does a hot shower. If heat was the issue that we wanted to generate, I could have saved us all a lot of money and tell everybody to go sit in a jacuzzi. That's not what this is about. In fact, as I told you before, avoiding heat while you're having the lights done is important. So that's far infrared. We use near infrared. That's the cold element of infrared. Used to call it cold laser, cold therapy, low-level laser therapy. These are all in the near infrared range. So we're integrating red and near infrared and driving that into the person's body. And what they learned is that these lights stimulate certain elements of your body to come back to life. So let's talk about those elements. You know your body is made up of tissues, and all the tissues are made up of cells. From head to toe, you're made up of billions of cells. And in each cell are components. And those components include the nucleus. And one of the other things it includes is the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the body and the cell. And so the mitochondria generates and produces a very important molecule called ATP. And so the mitochondria is the reason why you and I breathe oxygen and eat food, to generate this ATP molecule that is the energy currency of the body. It's the difference between health and disease. It's the difference between health, disease, and eventually death. If you have the right amount of ATP generated in your body, you won't have these issues that we are talking about, these chronic conditions that people get. You want to have your mitochondria working at 100%. And that's what this is about. And what they found is that these lights, the four wavelengths that I'm talking about that we have in this bed, will stimulate your mitochondria to come back to health. There are diseases called mitochondrial dysfunction. There's books out there, mitochondrial dysfunction. And what do you think I'm going to tell these people that have mitochondrial dysfunction? Get in the bed. And that's my motto. That's our motto that we have. I've got mugs here that say, get in the bed, trifecta light. And so if the person gets in the bed, we'll stimulate their mitochondria to come back to health. Now, I just want to give you guys an understanding of how important the mitochondria also is. They thought, when I went to school, that there was one mitochondria in every cell of your body. And it turns out that's not true. So the heart, which has the highest demand for energy, has over 5,000 mitochondria in every cell. And remember, I told you there are billions of cells in your body, and what they have now learned more recently is that the mitochondria make up 10% of your body weight. Can you imagine how many mitochondria are in your body and how important they are? And if you make nice, if you get these mitochondria to come back to health, to do what they're supposed to do, that's why people are having these amazing results with full body bed therapy. And again, I tell you, get on that website, go to the contact us page, find a location closest to you. You put in there, give them just your zip code. That's pretty much all they need. Your name, your zip code, and how they can communicate back to you. And they'll give you the closest office to you. And then try it for 6 times. When you call up the office, say, I want the Rothschild special, since I'm the owner of the company, and they will hopefully accommodate you, have you treated 6 times, and then at the end of the sixth visit, either that night or the next day, I want you to go back on the contact us page and just comment on the bottom how that went for you. And I'm telling you, I don't care what you got. If you don't see a difference, I would be very surprised. I if you've lost a finger, most likely we're not going to grow that finger back. But other than that, I would think we would be hard pressed to find a condition that we have not seen very nice results with. Some fun, huh?
So if I'm diabetic, what kind of does this work, do you think, for diabetes?
Absolutely. But what type of diabetes do you have?
I have two.
Yeah. Oh, this is when I get people with that type of an issue, kidney problem, diabetes, whatever, I want them to have the most recent lab studies, so that it's going to start off with not noticing just regular symptoms improving, but seeing the lab studies will improve. So I have to be careful here, and I still want you to, if I start making claims and somebody says, well, he said I should never go see my medical doctor again. I didn't say that. But I say, do what you're doing, and that's over here, and then add red light therapy. And don't be surprised if you're going to need less insulin or whatever you're taking. The drug needs will drop typically significantly. So you'll see great results with diabetes, kidney problems, liver problems, like I said, just about anything. So other than diabetes, you have any other questions for me?
I just think that this is great. I think finding it where we can have access to this amazing therapy is going to be good. I think it's something that we need to consider for a lot of pathologies because there are people struggling out there. And so I think if we can bring this forward and bring a holistic method that's non-intrusive, I think it's really important.
I want to point something out to you. Healthy people don't generate any money for the medical profession.
Mhm.
So you're not going to see a lot of effort of getting you or keeping you healthy. There's none. If you watch television, all of it's about the drugs you should take because you've got some issue. And the only reason that what's really surprising is that these commercials are not for you to go get that drug. It's for you to educate your doctor, who I guess didn't take any classes on this particular drug, that you're going to convince your doctor that he shouldn't give you the green pill, he should give you the blue pill instead, which sounds insane to me. If I were to tell people years ago, before they started doing this advertising, that sounds nuts. Well, guess what? It must work, because they're spending billions of dollars on convincing the whole planet, particularly this country, that their doctor doesn't know what they're doing, and that you have to educate them on what drugs would work best for them. And
Yeah,
all
I've
I'm
heard
telling
that so
you,
many times.
but you're not going to see a lot of commercials on, hey, from now on you should eat this. From now on you should stop this. It's not about education, because that's boring, first of all, for people. But I'm going to tell you, you already know how to take care of yourself. You know that smoking is no good. So if you're a smoker, how about if at least smoke less? And I'm going to tell you something. You're going to hear all kinds of people telling you alcohol, 2 drinks a day makes sense. No, alcohol is a poison. Your body handles it as a poison. Your liver gets overwhelmed by alcohol. And when someone says, well, I'm only a social drinker. Okay, well, you're doing yourself in. I mean, I can't tell you that a teaspoon a day would be harmful. Probably not. But the way people are drinking alcohol, it screws up your diet. So if someone wants to know how to ruin their health, smoking, we already know, I already mentioned alcohol. You already know fried foods aren't great for you. You already know those things. That doesn't mean you can never eat fun things that you think are fun again, but just do your health, your whole well-being and health, do it better. I'm not asking you to suffer because you won't continue on with this. I'm not asking you to suffer, but what I am asking you is to be wise and
Yeah.
do this in a wise way.
Well, thank you for your time. I think this is so informative. It's such a great privilege to be here with you and to be talking about it. I think it's a lot of information that people can take to their clients to help them feel better. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we close?
Not really. I want you to, listen, I'm not, I don't want it to sound like I know all, but I have witnessed a lot. I've seen tens of thousands of patients and I've seen what they've put themselves through. And
Yeah.
I'm just saying, don't wait until it's too late. If you have any of these diseases, and some of them are progressive and cannot be completely reversed, and the best that we'll shoot for is halting the progression. But if you have, like, for example, someone has Parkinson's, we had this one lady that she was embarrassed to go to church because she couldn't hold the Bible because her tremors were so severe. And after just 2 weeks of treatment, she still has the tremors, but they're so much more mild that she's easily able to hold the Bible. And so that's a seems like a simple thing to you and I maybe, but this made a world of difference for her. And so that's what this is about, making a world of difference. I wanted to mention that lady, I had mentioned to you that Joey, when you watch the video, he had Charcot-Marie tooth disease. These are 3 scientists that decided to stick their names individually on this disease. It has nothing to do with teeth. There's one person's name is Charcot, tooth, another guy tooth, another. Anyhow, Charcot-Marie tooth disease, I didn't know was a killer. So Joey had it for 15 years, and after 2 weeks of treatment, it stopped, it went away, and he's fine. And so I just thought that, but within this last month, there's a relatively famous actress. She's very young, in her 20s, and she died from Charcot-Marie tooth disease. I didn't know that. But guess what I would have told her about a year before she did die? Get in the bed. This is the mug that one of my mugs that I don't know if you can read
Oh
that.
my gosh, that's great. That's so good. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
you're
I appreciate your time today. I'm Kathy Couch, your Rewired 360 University consultant and trainer. Join us in January as we launch our subscription program, Kathy on the Couch for EMDR therapists, where you can join consultation, a CE podcast feed, and all of our videos and documents throughout the course of the membership. So stay tuned for the 12 days of Christmas. We will be highlighting some awesome goodies and make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you to Dr. Rothschild. We are so happy to have you here, and then we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. So let me ask you a question. Is that your maiden name, Couch?
Just one second. Let me stop this.